the show today as the White House nominees geared up for the last week of campaigning in the run-up to the US polls. Democratic nominee Kamala Harris distanced herself from the comments that were made by US President Joe Biden, in which he appeared to label Trump supporters as garbage. This as she vowed to serve all Americans if elected. We'll bring you the latest from the campaign trail on the show today.
Also on World DNA Today, Lebanon's Prime Minister Najib Mikati has expressed hopes for a ceasefire with Israel in the coming days. He said a US envoy hinted during a phone call on Wednesday that a ceasefire in the Israel-Hezbollah war was possible and it may just happen in the days to come before the American elections. We are going to be bringing you the latest on that front as well. This is World DNA. Let's start with the headlines first.
Donald Trump slams rival Kamala Harris and President Biden over comment targeting his supporters. Says you can't be president if you hate the American people.
Hezbollah's new leader says it could agree to a ceasefire under certain terms as Israeli forces expand bombardment of groups' bastions in eastern Lebanon.
Lebanon's Prime Minister says US envoy signaled ceasefire in the Israel-Hezbollah war is possible before the US elections.
North Korea test fires powerful long-range ballistic missile, says South Korea's military, as Japan claims that the missile had the longest flying time yet for the country.
At least 95 people died in Spain as the country braces for a heavier human toll in the country's deadliest flash floods in over 50 years.
UN human rights officials call for investigation of all killings and rights violations during the unrest leading up to the ouster of Bangladesh's former Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina.
In less than a week, voters in the United States will choose whether Kamala Harris or Donald Trump will be seated in the Oval Office.
Well, the Democratic candidate and nominee Kamala Harris vowed to serve all Americans if elected president, as she sought to contain a fallout from a remark by President Joe Biden that might suggest otherwise.
Now, her presidential campaign, it's been forced off pace by the remarks from President Joe Biden that appear to label Trump supporters garbage. In the closing pitch of a presidential campaign, Harris has promised to put the country above the party and above herself. The US Vice President is spending the final week of the campaign telling voters that she would respect those who disagree with her. She says her rival Donald Trump is a threat to democracy. However, she was forced to distance herself from the President Joe Biden's remarks.
To score political points.
Listen, I think that first of all, he clarified his comments, but let me be clear, I strongly disagree with any criticism of people based on who they vote for. You heard my speech last night and continuously throughout my career. I believe that the work that I do is about representing all the people, whether they support me or not. And as President of the United States, I will be a president for all Americans, whether you vote for me or not. That is my responsibility, and that's the kind of work that I've done my entire career, and I take it very seriously.
Seizing on the comments made by the US President, Donald Trump hit back at both Biden and Harris, saying you can't lead America if you don't love Americans. Donald Trump also climbed into a garbage truck as he arrived in Wisconsin and answered questions while wearing a high-waist jacket.
I think the Democrats have done a very poor job. We're leading in every state. We're leading big, and I think that the comment made by really both of them, because there are really two of them, about being garbage, maybe 250 million people, they shouldn't be talking. That's like deplorable for Hillary. This is the deplorable for Hillary. And I think this is worse, actually. For Joe Biden to make that statement, it's really a disgrace.
Now, this comes after US President Joe Biden's supposed attempt to call out racist remarks by a speaker at a campaign rally for Trump.
Just the other day, a speaker at his rally called Puerto Rico a floating island of garbage. Well, let me tell you something. I don't know the Puerto Rican that I know, or Puerto Rico where I'm in my home state of Delaware. They're good, decent, honorable people. The only garbage I see floating out there is his supporters. His demonization is seen as unconscionable, and it's un-American. It's totally contrary to everything we've done, everything we've been.
Biden sought to clarify his comment on social media a little later. The US president said, and I'm going to quote what he said, "Earlier today, I referred to the hateful rhetoric about Puerto Rico spewed by Trump supporters at his Madison Square Garden rally as garbage, which is the only word I can think of to describe it." Now, the White House also tried to clarify his remarks.
Just to clarify, he was not calling Trump supporters garbage, which is why he wanted to make sure that we put out a statement that clarified what he meant and what he was trying to say.
All right, and our correspondent Susan Tehrani from New York talks about what was Vice President Kamala Harris's focus as she campaigned for the 2024 election. Listen to this.
Vice President Kamala Harris continues to emphasize her commitment to safeguarding democratic institutions and access for health care, particularly in those swing states, which are crucial as this race tightens. Harris attended rallies where she highlighted her plans to expand health care access and address economic inequalities, framing these as being central to a fair and stable democracy. Her approach has resonated with younger voters and minority communities, positioning herself as a steady leader against Donald Trump. The VP's team believes that her stance on democracy and social welfare and possibly abortion will ultimately differentiate her campaign.
Susan also gave us an understanding of former President Donald Trump's campaign focus on a Wednesday. Take a look.
The former president concentrated rallying his base in Michigan and North Carolina, strategically appealing to working class and rural voters with a promise to cut taxes and support small businesses. Also reverse Democratic economic policies. Trump's campaign in Michigan emphasized energy independence and also trade protection, themes that resonate with Rust Belt voters. His message is aimed at portraying himself as a leader who will combat perceived government overreach, positioning his economic platform as an antidote to what he describes as excessive regulation and bureaucratic mismanagement by Democratic leadership.
And for more on this, joining us live on the broadcast is Democrat strategist Christopher Hale from Washington, D.C. Thank you so much for joining us on WION The World is One.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate being here.
Mr. Hale, it's the final stretch, of course, for the presidential hopefuls. It's a crucial week. Biden's comments recently, which appeared to label Trump supporters as garbage, that sparked an uproar, with Kamala Harris now having to distance herself. She said, of course, that she will be a president for all Americans and she will respect those who disagree with her. Do you believe this will have any sort of a bearing on voter sentiments, or do you think at this stage in this race to the White House, voters have pretty much made up their mind?
I think it's very marginal at most. I actually think what happened on Sunday with a comic, as you had in the segment before, a comic in New York City at Madison Square Garden calling Puerto Rico an island of garbage. I think that actually is more resonant. There's 500,000 Puerto Rican voters in Pennsylvania. And I think that what Kamala Harris did really well and what Joe Biden did really well is after the comments, he himself clarified what he said, and she immediately distanced herself from the comments. I think that was actually very good damage control. I will say this, though. It was really smart of President Trump just a few hours ago to appear on a garbage truck with his logo on it, wear the vest of a garbage pickup person. I think that resonates. He's trying to hammer it home. He mentioned Hillary Clinton's deplorable comments. Those deplorable comments did cost her in 2016. And look, so does it have an effect on the margin of voters? It's really small. Yes. But this election, as I've said time and again, will be decided by just tens of thousands of voters throughout a few battleground states. So I think it could matter.
Christopher, and as you mentioned earlier as well, Trump was quick to use that garbage comment to his advantage. He's been trying to pull all stops to ensure that he carries out a counterattack on the Democratic camp, using it to his advantage instead of theirs. At this point, all opinion polls have pretty much had Harris and Trump neck to neck. How do you place the two camps? We're days away from D-Day now.
Look, if anyone is telling you they know who's going to win next Tuesday, probably should remove that person from your life because they're lying to you. It's just the reality of it is this is a 50-50 race. At this point, to offer anything other than that is witchcraft. It's sorcery. It's just not. There's no being able to tell more than that. I will say this. I think that if there's an advantage from my side, if there's an advantage for the Democrats and Kamala Harris, we have a very strong, and I've seen it in the flesh, ground operation that's built on years and years of work, decades of work, in fact. So in marginal races, campaigns matter. Good campaigns cannot cannot come back from a race where you're down 4 or 5 points. But a great campaign can bring you back from a point down or a tied race. So if Kamala Harris wins on Tuesday, particularly in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, which probably is the key state, I think that great ground operation will be the reason why she gets over to the top.
Right. Also, of course, let's talk about the major issues for voters this time around. It's immigration, it's economy, and it's abortion rights. That being said, how do you think both nominees are positioned when it comes to these major issues going into the election?
Look, I think that Trump struggles to stay on topic. If this was a policy election, if policy drove the day, if Trump ran on policy alone, my party would not stand a chance. Those issues you named, the only one that we are winning on is abortion rights. We tried pretty hard to put that at the top of voters' minds. Trump has somewhat successfully distanced himself from the most stringent anti-abortion forces in his party. But his struggle to stay on message, to stay on policy, it gives us an opening. And one thing I will say, economic issues, Kamala Harris started this race down 15 points to Donald Trump. But there's been a strengthening economy in the United States. The inflation has slowed down significantly. And so she's actually almost tied on that issue. And they always say it's the economy stupid. That's like a phrase, that's a catchphrase in American politics. And if it's the economy stupid, the reality of it is this once again remains a 50-50 race.
Christopher Hale, thank you so much for joining us on World DNA, and I must say I really appreciate your candid and honest responses to all our questions. We'll get to know soon enough what happens on the 5th of November, and thank you so much for joining us.
We'll see you soon.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, let's shift our focus now. Staying with the US elections, of course. During the course of this dramatic election cycle, some top political leaders and their family members have changed their long-standing political loyalties as well.
And of course, during the course of this dramatic election cycle, some top political leaders, of course, they've changed their long-standing, as you just mentioned. Ananya Datta, our colleague, she's got us a complete report on the political names who have jumped the ship, and that is something we will definitely need to, see what impact it's going to have on them individually and on the parties they've joined. Take a look at this report.
First up on the list is former presidential hopeful Robert F. Kennedy Jr., son of former Democrat Senator Robert Francis Kennedy, and nephew to slain former President John F. Kennedy. Now, RFK Jr. altered his family's political history when he founded his own party and kicked off his presidential campaign early this year. Shortly after, he dropped his presidential bid and chose to support Republican Donald Trump, ending his family's long-standing legacy of being Democrats. 5 of Kennedy's family members had issued a statement then, calling his support for Trump a sad ending to a sad story. Also, Tulsi Gabbard has chosen to back Donald Trump, once a Democrat congresswoman. She ran for the president in the Democratic primary in 2020. Then in 2022, Gabbard quit the party, and the former Democratic candidate has accused Kamala Harris of abuse of power. She announced her support for Republican hopeful Donald Trump shortly after RFK Jr. suspended his campaign. Let's now talk about the other side. Former Vice President and veteran Republican leader Dick Cheney has endorsed Blue Camp hopeful Kamala Harris. His daughter Liz Cheney, one of Trump's fiercest Republican critics, has also joined the bandwagon, calling Trump a danger to the U.S. Constitution. Her father, who was once George Bush's number 2, has also called Trump a threat to the country. Now, the latest high-profile name to back Kamala Harris is Barbara Bush, daughter of former U.S. President George W. Bush and granddaughter to America's 41st President George H.W. Bush. Moving away from her family's Republican legacy, Barbara Bush has made a statement about backing Harris and protecting women's rights.
Lebanon's Prime Minister Najib Mikati has expressed hopes for a ceasefire with Israel, and it may just happen in the days to come.
Right, he said US envoy Amos Hochstein hinted during a phone call on Wednesday that a ceasefire in the Israel-Hezbollah war was possible before the American elections on the 5th of November.
Well, in a televised interview with Lebanese broadcaster Al Jadid, he further said that he became more optimistic of the truce as the US envoy is due to travel to Israel on Thursday. Mikati added that a ceasefire will be linked to the implementation of the UN resolution that ended the 2006 war between the two sides.
Honestly, I don't know what to believe anymore, but we are doing everything we can and we must always keep trying and remain optimistic. Hopefully in the coming hours or days, we'll see a ceasefire. I should mention that in my conversation with him, he was very hopeful, even though there were reports in the media suggesting otherwise.
U.S. State Department also confirmed the 2 White House officials, Brett McGurk and Amos Hochstein, are traveling to Israel to engage on issues including a diplomatic resolution in Lebanon and an end to the conflict in Gaza.
And one of the things that they are going to discuss is how we can find a diplomatic resolution that fully implements a UN Security Council Resolution 1701, something that we have not seen over the past few years.
On the other hand, Hezbollah's new leader, Naim Qasim, said that the group will agree to a ceasefire with Israel under acceptable terms, but added that a viable deal has yet to be presented. The statement came as Israel's Security Cabinet met to discuss a possible truce. Hours before that, the Hezbollah chief had said that the armed Lebanese group will continue on its path of war with Israel.
If the Israelis decide that they want to stop the aggression, we say we accept, but under the conditions that we see as appropriate and suitable.
Furthermore, the Israeli military said Hezbollah command centers were hit during strikes on Lebanon's eastern city of Baalbek and Nabateh in the south. Explosions rocked Baalbek city shortly after Israeli military issued warnings for the residents to evacuate. Lebanon's health ministry said at least 19 people were killed in Israeli strikes on 2 areas in the Baalbek region, while 11 people were killed in Israeli strikes on the town of Somor in the eastern Bekaa Valley.
Meanwhile, Hezbollah said it fired rockets and drones at 3 military positions in northern Israel, including near Haifa. It later said that it fired rockets at a military training camp that's southeast of Tel Aviv as well. The UN peacekeeping mission in Lebanon recorded more than 30 incidents this month, resulting in property damage or injury to peacekeepers, about 20 of them from Israeli fire or action.
UNIFIL spokesman said peacekeepers performing their monitoring tasks were deliberately targeted by the IDF as the war between Hezbollah and Israel, it still rages on.
And the United States has warned that North Korean troops fighting alongside Russia against Ukraine will return in body bags.
And this is as Ukrainian President Zelensky once again made an appeal to Washington to supply long-range missiles, or at least give it permission to use those missiles and its weapons inside Russia, to target inside Russia. Now, addressing the UN Security Council, the US Deputy Ambassador Robert Wood issued a stern warning to North Korean leader Kim Jong-un and urged him to think twice before taking any reckless decision.
Now, this comes after US Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin alleged that North Korean troops in Russian uniforms were advancing in the Kursk region. He called the move as dangerous and destabilizing.
The evidence now suggests that North Korea has sent around 10,000 soldiers to train in eastern Russia. And some of these DPRK troops have already moved closer to Ukraine. And we're seeing them outfitted with Russian uniforms and provided with Russian equipment. And I am increasingly concerned that the Kremlin plans to use these North Korean soldiers to support Russia's combat operations in Russia's Kursk region, near the border with Ukraine.
Furthermore, Seoul's Defense Minister Kim Yong-hyun raised concerns of Pyongyang deploying as many as 11,000 troops to Russia. The defense minister said that deployment of troops may not trigger escalations in the Korean peninsula, but added that Pyongyang might add ballistic and nuclear weapons to its arsenal in exchange from Moscow. Both the defense heads of US and South Korea have also called upon North Korea to withdraw its troops from Russia.
Meanwhile, Russian Ambassador Vasily Nebenzia rubbished Washington's claims of Pyongyang deploying troops to fight alongside Moscow's soldiers against Kyiv.
These are mere assertions, and in the absence of any convincing evidence, they are aimed only at shifting the focus away from the real problems that pose a threat to international peace and security.
Meanwhile, Ukrainian President urged United States for the supply of long-range Tomahawk missiles, while also slamming the White House for leaking confidential information.
At least 29 people were injured and a child was killed by a Russian guided bomb.
When a lot of countries began to support victory plan, you see what's going on now in media, they said that Ukraine wants or wanted a lot of missiles like Tomahawk and etc. But it was confidential information between Ukraine and White House. How to understand these messages? So it means between partners there is no any confidential things.
All right, we now shift focus to Spain, which will begin 3 days of official mourning today after at least 95 people died in the country's deadliest flood in over 50 years.
Now, the country is bracing for heavier human toll after flash floods launched muddy waters through towns, tossed cars, wreaked transport havoc. Heavy downpours, fierce winds have lashed Spain since the beginning of the week after a storm formed over the Mediterranean Sea. Some areas received up to a year's worth of rain in just hours.
The body coordinating emergency services in the eastern Valencia region said that it expected to recover more bodies. The head of the Valencia region, Carlos Mazon, told reporters there were no longer people to save from roofs or terraces through aerial means. Emergency services carried out 200 rescues on the ground and 70 aerial evacuations throughout the day.
A sea of piled up cars and mud-swamped streets in Sedavia, a suburb of the Mediterranean coastal city of Valencia. Residents attempted to clean up the sludge and grabbed buckets to bail out water from their homes ahead of a long night without water or electricity. Some 155,000 homes were without electricity in Valencia region due to the storm. Energy company Iberdrola said that it had dispatched 500 workers to restore power there.
King Philippe VI said he was devastated by the news on social media and offered heartfelt condolences to families of the victims, thanking emergency services for their titanic response. The European Union activated its Copernicus satellite system to help coordinate Spanish rescue teams, said the Commission's chief Ursula von der Leyen. The bloc has also offered to use its civil protection mechanism to send further reinforcements.
The flood toll in Spain is the deadliest since 1973, when at least 150 people were estimated to have died in the southeastern provinces of Granada, Murcia and Almeria. Meteorologists have said that the latest storm was caused by cold air moving over Mediterranean's warm waters, which produced intense rain clouds, a phenomenon common for this time of the year. The heavy death toll came after warnings for extreme rainfall suggesting Valencia's flood alert system failed, said Hannah Cloak, hydrology professor at the University of Reading. And with that, it's time now for a short break.
Don't go anywhere. Of course, this is DNA. We will be back on the other side of the break. 7 elephants have died in a national park in India's Madhya Pradesh since Tuesday, sending out alarm bells. We'll bring you a complete report on that front.
And of course, it's the festival of Diwali, which has arrived in several Indian families in the national capital. Take part in last-minute shopping. We'll get you all the details on this on the other side of the show. Stay tuned.
The Earth is sending distress signals. Wildfires, droughts, and melting glaciers. Can we reverse the damage? Explore the harrowing effects of climate change. It's a wake-up call. Global emergency. Climate Tracker on WION World is One.
Know more, understand better, think ahead. Hello and a very warm welcome. You are watching Gravitas with me, Molly Gambhir. Get the facts, not the bombast. On the 26th of March, dynamic pricing, Baloch separatists, Gravitas cuts out the clutter. Gravitas keeps calm when others scream. Gravitas brings news to life. Weekdays 9 p.m. IST, 3:30 p.m. GMT. Gravitas. Seeing is believing.
While of course me as an individual have been part of the industry for long, but never thought about what are the things that I have gone through in terms of challenges, opportunities, and as an individual, as a business, as something which was being brought out by the WION channel as part of the discussion. I'm sure really will be useful for even people who have seen cycles, at the same time people who are the future leaders of the world.
As people across the world celebrate the Festival of Lights, we get you a list of films you can watch this Diwali. Welcome the spooky season with our hand-picked movies. And find out some rare facts about Bollywood's Badshah Shah Rukh Khan. All this and much more with me, Isha Hanspal, at these times only on WION E-Club.
Welcome back to World DNA. Thank you so much for staying with us. Lots lined up for you on this side of the show as well. Let's get started with the headlines first.
UN human rights official calls for investigation of all killings and rights violations during the unrest leading up to the ouster of Bangladesh's former Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina.
Donald Trump slams rival Kamala Harris and President Biden over comments targeting his supporters, says you can't be a president if you hate the American people.
Hezbollah's new leader says it could agree to a ceasefire under certain terms as Israeli forces expand bombardment of groups' bastions in eastern Lebanon.
Lebanon's Prime Minister says US envoy signaled ceasefire in the Israel-Hezbollah war is possible before US elections.
North Korea test fires powerful long-range ballistic missile, says South Korea's military, as Japan claims that the missile had the longest flying time yet for the country.
At least 95 people have died in Spain as the country braces for heavier human toll in the country's deadliest flash floods in over 50 years. All right, news of a wildlife tragedy at the famed Bandhavgarh Tiger Reserve in central Indian state of Madhya Pradesh.
7 elephants have now died in the wildlife park since Tuesday, sending out alarm bells. Authorities suspect some form of poisoning here, though the exact cause will be known only after postmortems are carried out.
Now, authorities said that the condition of 3 other elephants is also serious. The state government has ordered a probe into the deaths of the tuskers and asked the officials to ensure strict action against the culprits.
4 elephants were found dead on Tuesday during routine patrolling by forest guards at Bandhavgarh. 3 more bodies were then recovered on Wednesday. The park is a well-known tiger reserve, with the elephant population here being a relatively new feature.
India is home to one of the world's largest Asian elephant populations. There's big concern on conservation of the elephant population. Nearly 1,400 jumbos have died of unnatural causes between 2009 and 2023, with causes ranging from poaching to train accidents to electrocution and poisoning. Designated elephant corridors have come in for scrutiny for violations. The latest case in Bandhavgarh draws attention again to lack of protection for the animal.
China is taking major steps to address its declining birth rate, which has dropped to a record low of 1.09 as of 2022.
Now, to combat the rising costs associated with raising children, Beijing announced a national plan that's expected to cost up to $70 billion.
The initiative, spearheaded by the State Council, will introduce childbirth subsidies, expand income tax deductions for parents, and increase medical and housing benefits for families. Now, this approach marks China's most extensive commitment yet to build what it calls a birth-friendly society in response to the country's rapidly aging population.
China's latest measures highlight a shift in policy as the government aims to address the social and economic factors behind the low birth rate. Beyond local incentives, the central government is also now drafting a unified national support system for families. China's population recently declined for a second consecutive year. Only 9 million births were recorded in 2023. That's the lowest since records began in 1949.
China's demographic challenges have wide-reaching implications, impacting everything from education to economic growth. In the past year alone, the number of kindergartens in China decreased by over 5% due to low enrollments. Meanwhile, the population shrank by more than 2 million people, dropping to 1.4 billion. In response, the government has announced targeted measures to support families.
Now, this includes higher public housing loan limits and home buying privileges for those with multiple children. Experts, however, caution that China's deep-rooted societal and economic issues such as delayed marriages and a growing single population may make reversing the trend challenging despite these new initiatives. Now, Indian investors are celebrating Diwali with the long-standing ritual of trading during an auspicious hour on the day of the festival.
Of course, Muhurat trading, we've heard that so very often. Take a look at this report for more. Take a look.
Diwali, the festival of lights, is one of the most significant celebrations in India, symbolizing the victory of light over darkness, good over evil. This year, Diwali falls on the 1st of November, and along with the festivities, a special event known as Muhurat trading takes place. This tradition is rooted in the belief that trading during this auspicious hour can attract prosperity and success for the upcoming year. Muhurat trading occurs on Diwali evening, typically lasting for just 1 hour. This year, the session will be held from 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. at the National Stock Exchange and Bombay Stock Exchange. It serves as a symbolic beginning to the Hindu New Year known as Samvat 2081, where many investors, particularly retail participants, engage in small, often symbolic trade in the hope of a fruitful financial year ahead. The practice of Muhurat trading has historical significance, dating back to when financial records were closed at the end of the year, making way for new beginnings. During this hour, traders focus on blue-chip stocks and established companies, as the tradition emphasizes building a robust portfolio rather than seeking immediate gains. Though the trading volume is typically lower than regular days, Muhurat trading is cherished for its cultural importance. Over the past decade, major stock indices in India have shown positive returns during these sessions, further enhancing their appeal. For many, participating in Muhurat trading is not just about financial investment, it's a way to honor tradition and usher in a hopeful new year, making it a unique blend of culture and commerce in the global financial landscape.
The festive season of Diwali is here, which is eagerly awaited by the investors and traders alike, as it is often viewed as an auspicious time for the financial activities. And this time around, there's a lot of positivity for the Diwali Muhurat trading session, which falls on the November 1st this year, which happens right here at the Bombay Stock Exchange for the period of 1 hour from 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. The trading session itself operates like a standard market day, where the people here can execute trade, they can buy and sell the stocks as they normally would, but the spirit and the atmosphere inside when the trading session happens is quite positive, quite of a celebration, keeping in mind the Diwali festive period. With video journalist Pramod, this is Ishasha reporting here for WION World is One from Mumbai.
It's the festival of lights, and Diwali is one of the biggest festivals for Hindus and holds immense significance as it reminds us of the triumph of good over evil.
Now, there's a wave of light and celebrations on the streets of the capital. Our correspondent Nikita Singh spoke to families who are taking part in last-minute shopping ahead of the big day as well. Take a look.
As Diwali approaches, the excitement in the air is palpable. I'm here in one of the busiest markets, the capital city of New Delhi, where families are immersing themselves in last-minute shopping for the Festival of Lights. The streets are alive with color and a shared sense of joy. Let's explore the excitement on ground leading up to this auspicious festival. What have you been shopping for this Diwali? What are you looking forward to? And I can see a lot of bags.
For home decor, I bought bed sheets, dohar, and
a few kurtis to wear on Diwali and some jewelry pieces.
And anything different that's there this Diwali? Anything that you'd like to share with us?
This Diwali, I think the things I can see around are more organic.
And yes, I have shopped a lot, and the handicraft things are really very nice over here. And I've bought some white dupatta, and yeah, and also there is a sari. It's in a purple color, dark purple. It's a walnut color, and it is in a linen. And the price is also very nice.
Really enjoyed coming here, especially with the Diwali celebration, with the drums and the dancer. That's been unexpected. I am not very good at bargaining, so Reena's been trying to help me a little bit.
We're doing Diwali shopping. We just started today, even though we should have done it a few days ago, but my dad arrived recently. We shopped for diyas, different sizes of course, different patterns.
Yeah, it's quite vibrant with all the colors and all the decorations as well. So we picked up some vibrant tablecloths and lovely dupattas, shawls as well with the winters coming in. So yeah, we can feel the vibe in here. So it's been great shopping in Delhi Hat.
And there are lots of options here as such with the colors and everything. So it's quite nice.
Being a hardcore Delhiite, Delhi Hat is an essence of shopping for us. Like, one trip during Diwali, it is always good. You get everything from clothes to last minute decor things for your home, and obviously also to binge on some street food and like some regional food here. So yeah, it's an overall experience as a family that we come during Diwali every year. So yeah.
As we wrap up our journey through the vibrant streets of Diwali shopping, it's clear that this festival is not just about lights and sweets, but also about the joy of versatile shopping. A very happy Diwali once again. With camera person Abhishek Rana, this is Nikita Singh for WION World is One.
All right, let's take a look at all the developments now from the world of technology. According to a report by Incogni, a data removal service company, dating apps like Bumble, Hinge and Coffee Meets Bagel and social media platforms like Facebook, Threads and Instagram regularly collect details of users' political and religious beliefs and sell them to third parties. As part of the research, the company reviewed data collection practices of the top 100 free apps across 36 categories in the United States. It was found that 74 out of the top 100 apps collected highly sensitive and personal data of their customers. Most of the apps that collect political and religious beliefs claim to do so for app functionality. However, researchers say they do not understand why and how this data could practically help developers improve the reliability, ease of use and overall user experience.
Iran has officially lifted its ban on new Apple iPhones. Iranian citizens will soon be able to get their hands on iPhone 14, 15 and 16. The ban on new iPhone models had been in place since last year. As per the government data, about a third of Iran's mobile phone import market, it consisted of iPhones before this ban. But up till now, any iPhone 14, 15 or a newer model brought into Iran would stop working on Iran's state-controlled mobile phone networks after 1 month. Sattar Hashemi, Iran's telecommunications minister, has said that the government will now be allowing the registration of new iPhone models.
Some UK-based video game actors have expressed a desire to show solidarity with US voice actors who've been on a strike since July. Members of the SAG-AFTRA union, including voice actors working for companies like Activision and Disney, have been protesting over concerns related to the use of generative AI in the industry. Although negotiations are ongoing, there has been little progress. While gamers haven't been significantly affected yet, the strike has impacted English language voice acting in some games, such as the latest update of the Genshin Impact. The game's developer, MiHoYo, has attributed the delay to recording arrangements.